Frank Williams was one of the greatest F1 team owners in history and a man who became an icon through his determination to compete at the highest level despite a severe disability. So Frank, who first ran an F1 team in 1969 and set up Williams Grand Prix Engineering in 1977 before launching into more than 2 decades of success, was a quadriplegic after breaking his neck in a car crash in March 1986. Once he came through months of recovery and rehabilitation, he launched himself back into F1, a sport he loved with a passion matched by very few, and went on to his greatest achievement. His team won 7 drivers' titles and 9 constructors' titles, but in recent years have fallen to the back of the grid after racking up losses through the pandemic, and it was sold to Dorrington Capital in August 2020 as the family moved aside. Williams did not so much love F1 as was consumed by it. Although his health prevented his active involvement in the team for the last few years, he literally lived in the factory. The team he set up as his life, as it has always been. A measure of his devotion to the sport was that he was prepared to put his own comfort second to the success of his team. When he faced the decision some years ago between building a wind tunnel to make his cars go faster and keeping a private plane that allowed him to attend the furthest flung races, he chose the wind tunnel. To those who studied his career closely, this sort of decision was no surprise for Williams, who have had to endure a number of difficult years. From his first venture as team owner in 1969, Williams went through several guises, all of them awfully uncompetitive and financially insecure. At one stage, so tight money had become, he was famously operating his business out of a phone booth after losing his premises he was using. The breakthrough came in 1977 when he teamed up with engineer Patrick Head and became a trendsetter in finding money from the Middle East. Helped by increased resources allowed by Saudi money, Head's first car for the team at the FW06 established them as series contenders for the first time in 1978, and from midpoint of 1979 with a new FW07 of one of the history's great F1 cars, Williams became the sport's absolute pace setter. Poor reliability and eccentric soaring system cost them the World Championship in 1979, but they made no mistake in 1980 with Australian Alan Jones romping to the title. Jones and teammate Carlos Reutemann both narrowly missed out on a Williams double in 1981 before both quit the sport, but the Finn Keke Rosberg took another title in 1982, albeit one based on consistency, after the Ferrari team lost both its lead driver, one killed and one seriously injured in remarkably similar accidents, and the faster Renaults were let down by reliability. As F1 first turbo era took hold, a new partnership with Honda slowly started, with just one win in 1984, but gathered pace through 1985, and until in 1986, Williams again emerged as a dominant car, the FW11. But before the season has even started, Williams' very future was cast in doubt by its founder's injury. Racing his drivers Nelson Piquet to the airport in hire cars after a pre-season test in the south of France, Williams turned his car over and broke his neck. Williams team manager Peter Windsor, now a journalist, was in the car with him and was remarkably unhurt. The car was banged over a few times, and I'm ashamed to say it was either 6th or 7th rollover accident I've had in my life, Williams said. I remember the sharp pain was in my neck. I thought, wow, rolling over isn't supposed to hurt that much. The car finished upside down, and I tried to reach for the safety belt to get myself out, and I couldn't do it. I knew I was going to have a big one, but I couldn't slow myself down. When Williams suffered the injuries, he was 43. Doctors pointed out to those close to him, based on the examples of other people with similar problems, he'd be lucky to live 10 years. It says a lot about his determination and single-mindedness that he managed more than 3 times that. Williams had been a very active man and a keen runner, but he was determined to carry on difficulties despite the accidents caused. The thought of retiring or selling the team had never crossed my mind, he said, and I also suppose recognised subconsciously it would be a great daily anecdote for the difficulties I would find myself in. It's a fantastic job, a very exciting business, highly competitive, always something to worry about, which can be quite healthy. The following months of recovery, which had kept the team going, and public school educated Williams, never portrayed any sense of self-pity, depression or anything like that. His late wife Ginny wrote a book about their marriage. In it she describes him in the month after the accident. He talked about it very little and simply said that they had several good years of one kind of life together, and now they just have to get used to a different one. The remark gave her a superbly title for the book, A Different Kind of Life. Head said, I'm sure Frank had some terrible moments thinking about the change in his life, but he was never going to sit around and feel sorry for himself. He was always pragmatic and what is the problem and how can I deal with it, and that's how he applied his injury. His enthusiasm and positive attitude always overcame any difficulties he's had. The first few months after his accident, Williams spent focusing on getting into conditions that would allow him to go back to races. Head described how Williams ran his life with military position, adding once he found out what the things were causing problems, he adapted his lifestyle to give the best opportunities. He's very disciplined about that sort of thing. It's remarkable what he's done since then. Frank's always been quite private in his own emotions and in control of his interactions with others. Once we got used to the fact that he wasn't the same person, he was just going to be in a wheelchair, things just carried on as normal. Williams' attitude to his disability was simple. It was just one fault. He ended up that way, so he had to just get on with it. He would say in his clip manner, "I've had a wonderful life, wouldn't dream of changing anything truthfully." In 1986, Williams lost the title to McLaren's Alain Prost despite the superiority of their car, because both drivers, Piquet and Mansell, split the points between them. But in 1987, Williams, now back at work full-time, they dominated. Piquet's consistency trumping Mansell's greater speed and for reliability. At the end of the year, Williams lost their Honda engines, a dominant force in F1, and many feared for the future of the team without a factory engine supplier and man in a wheelchair at the helm. In fact, Williams were about to embark on their greatest period of success, replacing Honda with Renault and forging a partnership that sets new standards, dominating in 92 and 93 season, with car bristling with technology such as active suspension, allowing Mansell and Prost to crush the opposition. The success illustrated the achievements, the titles they won with famous drivers such as Jones, Rosberg, Piquet, Mansell, Prost and Damon Hill came thanks to the investment in world-class engineering. Williams had provided the platform for some of the most brilliant engineers to make their name, among them Adrian Newey, who's currently still doing his stuff at Red Bull, and Ross Brawn, who started his F1 career at Williams before moving on to Ferrari, Benetton, Mercedes. Although Williams' greatest regrets was his time working with Ayrton Senna was so short, Williams was the first team to give the great Brazilian a trial in F1 in the summer of 1983, but they decided not to sign him. They finally joined forces 10 years later, only for Senna to be killed in the 1994 San Marino Grand Prix, 3 races into his Williams career. I felt that we had given him a great responsibility, providing him with the car, and let him down. Senna's death led to a lengthy legal process in Italy in which Williams, Head and Newey all faced manslaughter charges, but were ultimately acquitted. The Renault partnership came to an end in 1997 after consecutive titles for Hill and Villeneuve, and there was another brief hiatus with customer engines before a new partnership with BMW started in 2000. There were great hopes for an alliance of such powerhouses, but the relationship fell short, and in 2005 BMW, disappointed with Williams' performance, pulled out and set up its own team. It was the death knell for Williams as a front-running team. There was an 8-year gap between Juan Pablo Montoya's victory in Williams BMW in the 2004 Brazilian Grand Prix and Pastor Maldonado's shock victory in Spain 2012. Since then, there's been a brief upturn in form in 2014-2015 with the strength of the Mercedes engine at the beginning of the hybrid era gave Williams a leg up. The new owners, Diton Capital, have brought it and intend to continue the family name. It underlines the significance of the achievements of a man who stamped character on that team and epitomises the racing spirit of Williams. But anyway guys, that's it for the video. Thanks very much for watching. Remember to like, share, subscribe, let me know your thoughts, comments down below. Find me on Twitter, link in the description below for daily F1 news, and subscribe to my channel on the screen right now, it'd be greatly appreciated. Thanks very much for watching. Peace.